Hello class, today is February 7th and we are on lesson unit 3, forms of a line. Our learning objective is to write the equation as slope-intercept form. Of course, let's take a look of what slope-intercept form look like. So when we have y equal to mx plus b, if the equation is written in this way, we call it slope-intercept form. There's a reason that we call it that way, because we are able to read the slope and also the y-intercept. This is y-intercepts. Whenever they give us an equation in this format, we're able to tell the slope right away from the formats and then as well as the y-intercept. For example, if my equation is y equal to 2x plus 7, okay, we can tell slope, we use m to represent it equal to 2, and we use a b to represent a y-intercept, meaning where the line will intersect with the y-axis. All right, that's a 7. All right, so that's easy to understand. Let's take a look of our first example. Exercise 1, consider the linear function f of x equal to 3x plus y. Now let's say they use f of x to replace y, but actually it's the same thing. This is the same as y equal to 3x plus 5. Alright, so this equation looks just the format we just discussed on the previous slide, right? So this is, let me just copy down. What does it look like when we have a y equal to mx plus b? So if you compare, right, let's compare those two, you will notice 3 is the m, the y-intercept. M the number itself, the constant, is a y-intercept. Okay, now let's verify, hey, if we do not remember this number is our y-intercept, how can we find out the y-intercept? Let's find out the y-intercept by evaluating f of 0. Okay, when we have f of 0, that means x equals 0. Right? X equals 0. And then we all know when we talk about the y-intercept, it's actually telling us the x equals to 0. Right? Whenever we talk about the y-intercept, that is telling us the x equals to 0. Okay? Please remember this. Okay. So we have the equation. All we need to do is we're going to go to the equation. We are replacing the x with 0, right? X with a 0, because x equals to 0, plus 5. 3 times 0 give you 0, 0 plus 5 give you 5, right? It actually just a number we identified in the beginning, right? That is 5, that's a constant. All right, great. Question B, let's find the average rate of change. If you guys remember, hey, that is about the slope, right? As we just discussed, slope, you actually can find it on the equation, which is 3. But let's verify from here. Okay, let's see is this true. We're going to find the rate of change. Remember, rate of change is same thing as the slope. that is delta f, the difference in the y value, over delta x. This is something we learned on the previous lesson. It's just notation. But this is nothing different from y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So we do have x1 and x2 here. So we can just, let's replace x2 with 3, replace s1 with a -2. Now the problem is where we can find y1 and y2. Remember, y1, it's the outputs, right? Given this equation, the outputs is depending on the inputs. So that is saying we just need to go to the equation because we know f of x1, which is f of -2, right? It's right here. So we just use the equation to do the evaluation. 3 times -2 plus 5. All right, so 3 times -2 give you -6, plus 5 will give you -1. So this is our y1. I'm going to put it here, -1. Okay, now y2 is same thing as f of x2, right? Output. F of x2 come from here, f of 3. So we're going to take 3 with us and go to the equation. 3 times 3 plus 5. That is 9 plus 5. That give you 14. Okay, cool. So we're going to place 14 here. And remember that is subtraction between it. Okay, now let's do some computation. -14 minus 1. That double negative will give you a positive. You'll become 15. 14 plus 1. That's 15. And this is what? Plus as well, since you are double negative, that give you 5. Right? So that's 15 divided by 5. So our slope is 3. Hey, take a look. It is, right? It is 3 because we can also read it from the equation. See, there's different ways to find the slope. Obviously, we don't want to go longer way. If we know what the slope form look like, we can tell, we can identify the slope and y-intercept from the equation directly. Okay, now let's take a look at our second question. Consider a line whose slope is 5. You know, this is important information. Let's highlight it. Slope is 5. Okay. And then it passed through the point 0 and 8. We are going to write the equation to represent this line using slope-intercept form, y equals to mx plus b. So you can tell we only need 2 things, right? The first one is the slope. The second one is a y-intercept. As soon as we have those 2 components, we're able to create an equation. Now, the thing is slope is given in the question. Slope is 5, so just write it 5. The y-intercept, where we can find y-intercept? Is it given here? Well, if you look at this point, all right, guys, remember on the previous question when we talk about when we are finding the y-intercept b, that is telling us x equal to 0, right? So actually, if you look at this point, you have x equals to 0. That means our y-intercept is 8. All right? So once again, this is a very important concept. When you have y-intercept, that means x equals to 0. So if they give you order pairs such as 0 and whatever the number, then the second number gonna be your y-intercept. So we have everything we need. Y equal to mx, which is 5 times x plus 8, right? So it's so convenient if you know what the slope-intercept form look like. Okay, now let's look at our next one. Beautiful. So in this question, right, it seems like we don't have the slope. We do have something that we may take directly, which is this one. Why? Because if you remember from the previous example, we talked about when you have x equal to 0, and this second value gonna be the y-intercept, right? When you have a 0. So that means we have the y-intercept directly given from the question, which is 6. So write it down, b equals to 6. However, we do not have the slope, but that is not a big problem because we remember the slope formula. We have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? This is slope formula. I need you guys to remember. Now, you can name the point order pair as y1, x1, all right, or x2, y2, doesn't really matter. We're gonna follow the order. Let's have the first order as order pair as x1, y1, the second order pair as x2, y2. Okay, so we have everything we need. y2 is 16, y1 is 6, x2 is 5, x1 is 0. So all about computation. 16 minus 6 give us 10, divided by 5, because 5 minus 0 give you 5, and that will give you 2. Beautiful. So we have everything we need. We just go to the equation, right? Write down this equation, y equal to mx plus b, y equal to m equal to 2, and the y-intercept equal to 6. And that complete our questions. All right, beautiful. Okay, now let's look at our next example. We have the graph. We don't have any given information regarding the slope, right? It didn't tell us what the slope on the y-intercept is. However, I think we can just find those information from our graph. First of all, let's find the y-intercept. Why? Because we know it's just a point that intersecting with the y-axis, right? So if you read it, this one is 0 and what? 1. Beautiful. So we have y-intercept equal to 1. Now, the thing is, the more steps we may need to use to find out the slope. So there's two ways. You can either identify 2 points, right? Let's identify this point. This is another one. Let's read it. There's 1 and 3. As soon as you have 2 points, boys and girls, you are able to use the slope formula. Let's just write down one more time, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? And then, you know what? Let's have this as x2, y2, and the first green order pair as x1, y1, okay? So now we just need to go ahead and plug in y2 equal to 3, y1 equal to 0, x2 equal to 1, x1 equal to 0. Sorry, this y1 should be 1. All right, so go ahead, 2 over 1. The slope is 2, so our equation is y equal to mx plus b, so it will be 2x plus 1, and that is our equation. Okay, now we need to find the slope of the line parallel to the one shown. So it's a parallel, right? Here is the thing you guys need to remember. If it's a parallel, okay, let me use M2 because we have a 2 line, so this is M1. M2, if it's parallel, 2 lines are parallel, they have the same slope. So they should have the same slope as 2. Okay, so please remember that when they are parallel, that means that they have same slope.